Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for another episode of the Alex Hayes podcast. Today, my special guest is Tim Beal. He is the owner and founder of Beal's Auto Body here in Prescott, Arizona. And today I'm going to be asking him questions about his entrepreneurship journey, his business ownership journey, and how he went about exiting his company and having a succession plan so that it continues to thrive without his direct involvement today. I'm super excited to hear all this wisdom and insight from somebody that's been there, done that. And, with that, Tim, thanks so much for being here on the podcast.
You bet.
So to open us up, take us back to 1985. That's the year you founded Beal's Auto Body.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. So take us back to 1985. Walk us through who Tim was back then and what were some of those initial thoughts of like, why start the business?
Well, I was probably 24 or 25 at the time. Starting the shop really wasn't an intention. Okay. I was working in another shop in town. I was renting a house on a piece of property that had a shop on it that a gentleman by the name of Gordo ran a dirt business out of. And he had semis and serviced those. And he had a wash bay in there that when I was young man, my father and I had converted into an area where we could paint. Had put lights up in the corner, had a fan, and we would paint his trucks in there. And then later on, he would hire me to work on his vehicles. And then, past that, I started renting that for $20 a day. I worked at another shop in town during the day. I was putting my wife through college at the time. We had two really young kids. And of course, we were really young at the time. And then the shop that I was working for called me in and said, here you're doing side work. Yeah. Well, you're going to make a decision because we don't allow that. And it's like, well, I can't take care of my family for what you guys pay me. So you want me to load my stuff up now, or do you want a 2-week notice? But then by that time I had, quite a bit of stuff lined up. So anyway, that's how it got started. I loaded my stuff up and just started doing it full time. So when I started, I wrote your estimate, scheduled your job, I sanded it, I did the body work, I painted it, cleaned it up, I delivered it to you, and I did the book work because it was just me, And then as things got busier, hire a helper to give me a hand and rent 2 stalls and then 3 stalls, and then one day, a gentleman that I knew came by, and by that time Gordo had retired in the big truck shop side of the building. He wasn't using anymore. A gentleman come by and wanted me to talk to Gordo about him leasing it. So I went over that evening and he gave me what he wanted for it. And it's like, I'll take it. So, and that's basically how it got started,
It was basically you started because you needed money to provide for your family. Like
Yeah.
it was just out of necessity.
Yeah. It wasn't this grand plan to build this collision shop. When I grew up in the shop with my father, he specialized in Corvettes and custom work. And, that's what I was going to do. Then we ended up moving to Prescott. Of course, there wasn't any of that type of work up here. So we just painted anything anybody would pay us to paint to survive. At the time he worked at Lamb Chevrolet, with the body shop there. So I would go over and help him there. And that's basically where I learned my trade is from my father. And then, later on, I did restoration work, paint jobs, all that. And then slowly moved into the collision side because that's where the money was. The problem with the restoration, the custom stuff is I had to do all of it myself, where when you're doing collision work, you can hire technicians with those skills.
So talk to me a little bit about what did Prescott look like in 1985? Like what was the landscape like and how did you find customers and such?
Basically what was good about back then, and it still holds up today, is, word of mouth was real strong back then. The body shops at that point in time were known for, you built your reputation on your paint work. Okay. Today it's a little different, because body shops don't paint cars anymore, do complete paint jobs. Back then cars and, paint jobs on cars would only last 2-3 years, on a new car in the 80s and in the 70s. So anytime a vehicle got in an accident, you always work them a deal to paint the whole car because it was easier than trying to match this faded out stuff. And, it was just more profitable to do that. It basically started out when you're starting from nothing, the easiest place to find work is used car lots.
Mm.
So you just go roll in the dirt with all the used car lot guys and fix the scratch, paint that door, because they want the cars refurbished before they put them back on the lot. So that's really kind of where I started. I used to do a lot of used car work for all the dealerships, and then finally got them to start referring me regular customers, and just built a reputation from there. Yeah, but it was a long grind. There were a lot of days I did not think it would be. It was. I never thought in I never thought the collision business would turn into what it did. I had a gentleman move to town, buy a shop years ago, and this is probably 30 years ago. And he comes to see me, and he told me his goal was to do $60,000 a month in repair work on cars. And I thought, you have lost your mind. There is no way you can turn those kinds of dollars in a bunch. I mean, but that's how naive I was, at the time. Yeah, it turned out to be something that I really didn't expect it to be, honestly, because the town was so small at that time.
What was the population? Do you remember?
Oh, it was probably around 25,000, 30,000.
25,000.
I mean, when I moved here with my dad in 73, I think population of Prescott at that time was like 5.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was, Chino Valley, 1,500, Prescott Valley almost didn't exist at that time. It was just tumbleweeds. And well, it was referred to as Jackass Flats because of all the wild burros that were out there.
Yeah.
And they had businesses out there that were named out, people started talking about Prescott Valley, and it's like, where's that? So we used to drag when I was in high school here in the 70s, we would drag race out on 89A. Set up a tree, battery operated tree. And I mean, you'd look across Prescott Valley, you wouldn't see a dozen lights on out there at that time. I mean, you'd watch for the cars coming off the hill for Jerome, which would be maybe a couple a night. Somebody would call in a accident in Skull Valley. So the only sheriff in the county would be down there. So we could, race our cars all night long. What I like to tell people is if you've ever seen the film American Graffiti, that's what Prescott was like in the 70s.
Oh, wow.
Exactly what Prescott was like in the 70s.
Wow.
Other than no rock and roll, because they didn't have a rock and roll station.
And today it's 125,000 between Prescott Valley.
It's just incredible growth. Everybody wants to close the door behind them that lives here. Every time somebody moves here, we got enough people now, we need to close that. But this entire economy in Prescott's been built on growth. So I don't know how you shut that off. Plus, you have a lot of private land ownership that's zoned to do certain things with. You have to respect people's property rights. Yeah, it'll always be a tussle, I think.
In that first decade of your business, what did you learn from your customers about being a business owner in that first decade that stuck with you?
Probably the biggest thing is every customer you deal with, you have to treat them in such a way that they will refer work to you. Okay. You want to treat every potential customer that you see, that's going to be your next salesman. I learned later on, about 20 years ago, when we hooked up with a company that does our surveys after you pick up your car. And this guy was a behavioral psychologist by the name of Steve Schoolcraft. Now he's no longer with us, but the thing that he said to me that really stuck with me, that I always had believed in before he told me that, was it's not whether people will refer your business. Okay. And a lot of the survey cards that the insurance companies have, and when they come talk to you, would you refer shop? Yes. And that's not the question. Will they refer? If they have somebody they work with, a family member, a neighbor, they get in an accident, will they mention your shop? Did you make enough of an emotional connection with that customer that they will refer you? So that's kind of the base of what we did with Beal's Auto Body to get it established. It was try to make salesmen out of our customers.
I love it. That's sage advice for any business owner at any stage, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I ran into a gentleman that was, and of course I've gotten old now, so I'm not as probably as correct as I should be, but I run into a gentleman that we had fixed a car for that was very unhappy, and he gets all done with everything, and I said, I got to tell you, we run about a 99.2% rate on satisfying our customers. You just happen to be that 0.8 because you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest lesson to learn is you are not going to make it. There are just people out there that you're going to do business with, and no matter what you do, and no matter how much time and effort you put into them, they're just not going to be happy. And that's probably the biggest thing. Take care of the people you can take care of, and the people you can't make happy, don't take it personal. Just blink and move on.
Move quick.
Yep, 100%.
Do you remember a moment in your journey and as the business grew that you said, yeah, this is going to be good. Like this is going to be
100%.
a legacy.
It was when I moved into my own building that I purchased. When I finally had my own real estate and I didn't have a landlord over me, that was the day I went, yeah, I'm making this work. This is going to be okay.
Is that first half or second half?
Probably right in the middle.
Pretty close to the middle. So about 20 years.
I'd say probably 10 or 12 years.
10 or 12
I think
years.
I rented before I purchased the property and built the shop. Yeah.
But you spent well over a decade investing in the business and growing that business before it was, yeah, this is going to be good.
Yeah. I really didn't see it that way. For me, it was about survival. It wasn't about success. It was about surviving. I was probably close to 20 years before I figured out that, this could be really profitable. This is really turning into something that I never imagined it could be. The first 20 years was just so expensive, all the training and all the equipment you got to buy and the reinvestment. If it hadn't have been for Shelley getting a nursing degree, okay, and becoming a nurse, we would have never been able to do what we did, because she took care of all the homes. When she went to work, we were married about 5 years. When she was in high school and we got married. So it was about 5 years we were married when she graduated from college with her nursing degree. And that's when I was able to start actually really building a business because I didn't have to support the family anymore. She could take care of the house payment, the groceries, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we took the profit or the money that we made with the body shop and reinvested. I was the first one in town with, computerized estimating. I just was always trying to be in the forefront of the industry on as far as equipment and services and all that kind of stuff. So I used to read those trade magazines like they were the Bible, trying to get enough information out of it to make my business better. But so we did that for like 20 years. I didn't have a paycheck. If I did, it was very small. We just took the profit from the shop. We'd buy a rental house. We'd buy more property. We'd build another building. Whatever. Having a partner like that, all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, wow, hey, we did it. But you got your head down in that grind for so long, you're not really paying attention. Then all of a sudden you get old one day and you go, okay, this file's big enough.
I think it's such helpful advice for aspiring entrepreneurs right now because it helps, I think, to reset time horizons and expectations of how long it takes to build something great. Everybody today wants to get rich quick. I'm going to buy this crypto. I'm going to be a millionaire.
Yeah,
it's all this. I think our culture would do much better if we kind of refocused on building the real economy instead of the fake one on, the paper trading and stuff. But
we even have that problem with young hires because we have trained a lot of people over the period of time. And, just some people are just impatient. They want it all now. They don't want to put the work in it takes to finally be that technician that can handle anything. That takes 8, 9, 10 years to get to the point where you've now painting a little easier, maybe 5 years, but it takes a long time to master this trade as a
it's a skilled craft.
Yeah, it's and it's not for everybody. Probably the biggest thing people talk about when they get into this trade is, man, this is hard work. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing happens unless you're moving.
Exactly. Yeah. You mentioned Shelley. She was instrumental in helping you relieve that burden of building the business.
Mm-hmm.
But did she help you with other aspects early on?
She worked 10-hour shifts 3 days a week and then take care of the kids. The only input she really had in the business is when I would come home, frustrated because the month didn't go good and this thing fell apart and that thing, we didn't make any money. And I just feel like I'm spinning my wheels and I don't think I could do this anymore. And she would just look at me, you need to shut up. You can't work for anybody. Just go back and, figure it out. So, and she knew that, within a month or two, I'd hit a good way we'd go,
a reality check.
The wave would pick up, work would pick up, whatever. But she was 100% behind the entire thing. I mean, she's just been a great partner. People like to give me a lot of credit because I didn't finish high school. I quit school when I was 16 to paint cars, and boy, it's just amazing what you've done. But I tell everybody, if it wasn't for my wife's college degree, I'd still be working for somebody or looking for a job. It's just not the truth. I mean, yes, it is a pretty good story, but it's not my story. It's our story.
You had a solid partner that helped you achieve what your goals were.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
How long have you been married?
December will be 44 years.
44 years.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Congratulations. That is amazing.
Nuts. Old people.
I love it. I love hearing those type of stories, especially around success.
Yeah. Those are two things I learned from my father, who was married 3 times. Don't chase women and my trade.
Both served you well.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. 100%.
All right. Well, let's transition a little bit to your mid journey of your company. Any company that's been around for a number of years inevitably has to be able to navigate market changes or customer changes or technology changes. What was 1 or 2 major pivots that you had to adjust to in over the 40 years that?
Well, there was just one.
What was the big one?
When I was 35 or 36, I had, we'd already purchased the property on Iron Springs. We were doing pretty good. I had a bunch of young technicians that I had trained. We were very profitable. I mean, we were doing good. Then I was just the most anal retentive person at that time. I mean, Beal's Auto Body is Tim Beal and Tim Beal is Beal's Auto Body, and everything else came second in my life. It was not uncommon for me to put in 12, 13 hours a day. It was not uncommon for me to go on the weekends and work. My wife would finally throw a fit. We'd take a trip, but my mind was always on the shop. And then driving to work one day, and I noticed I can't see signs. What the hell? I go to the eye doctor, and I have a pituitary brain tumor.
Man.
So my wife had 2 patients at that time that had brain tumors that she threw dirt on in 6 months. So I thought, this is it, So it was 10 days before, from the diagnosis, from the MRI where I got diagnosed, before I went to see the neuro-ophthalmologist that was in Phoenix, that was in charge of this thing. So, 10 days, Shelly and I, of course, at that time you have to understand there's no internet. Okay. I mean, she's going to the hospital at night, when she's working and going through the medical books, trying to figure this thing out. Right. So we go see this gal in Scottsdale, super sharp. And she comes in, meets us, and she's like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, what do you mean what's wrong with us? I mean, I got this thing. And she goes, well, didn't anybody explain to you what you have? No, they just said I had a brain tumor. She goes, she says, what you have is a pituitary tumor. And he says, if there was a chart on the wall of every brain tumor that we know about, the one you have is the one you want. It's completely benign. You do surgery, pull it out, we put you on artificial hormones, and you live the rest of your life. And it's like, you have got to be shitting me.
Oh, wow.
I mean, for 10 days, I'm serious. I'm doing my bucket list. I'm thinking my life is over. We go down. The stupid thing is they tell you, okay, we're going to do the surgery in 30 days. Did you have any headaches? Yeah, I had a headache one night about a month ago. And man, I was on a bathroom floor. I was throwing up. I'd never felt anything like that before. The doctor looks at me and goes, that makes sense because in the picture, we can see where that tumor's bled. Okay, so we're going to schedule the surgery in 30 days. But if you get one of those headaches again, you get to the hospital, you get flown down here and we'll get that thing out because it can kill you. Yeah. So what do you do for the next 30 days? You getting a headache?
Yeah.
It's it. Nuts,
Jeez,
right?
Louise,
Yeah. So anyway, they tell me, hey, you can't go to work for 90 days. There's no way, right? I'm home about probably 4 to 5 weeks. And Shelly gets me in the car, and I got this walker because my equilibrium's all messed up. And I get over to the shop, and I'm sitting in a chair, and people are answering phones, and cars are coming in, and cars are leaving, and payroll's being made, and deposits are being made, and all this stuff is happening without me being. So I talk at the time, we had a ton, well, probably 10 insurance partners we were doing work for. And I'd call them up and, hey, I'm back, and, we're going to take care of everything. And, if anything got messed up, I'm going to make sure, make this all right and all this kind of stuff. But, after about the third phone call where they told me, Tim, we really think that thing worked better without you being there. It's like, that's an aha moment. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was the turning point in my life, because prior to that, I listened to every phone call everybody had, everything they said to every customer. I was notorious for touching body filler when it was wet and running it, trying to make sure that the dents, I was horrible, as far as being that anal retentive about everything that happened in my business. And I had really, really good people. And I had really, really smart people that knew what to do. But I never gave them that opportunity because I was just so anal retentive. So after that, it was like, we're done. Everybody can just do their job, So at that point in time, and it was just probably just a few years after that, we joined a performance group through the paint company where you would meet with 20 other shop owners 3-4 times a year, and you go over numbers and, what are you doing for marketing? How are you making that profit on paint materials? How are you doing this? Then they bring in speakers about what's happening next, what's coming down the road, what you got to get ready for. And between that and the medical situation I went through, I determined that I needed to work on my business and not in my business. And that was the big turning point for me. When I started paying attention to the P&Ls, when I started watching what the processes were when people dropped cars off, and what the processes were for putting that car through production, and everything that stopped that car from getting done and getting out the door. I would sit in the office and just, instead of having input, I would just listen to the phone calls coming in. Okay, guys, we got a problem here. Today, we had 14 people call in here wanting to know what the progress is on their car. And every time they do that, you guys waste 10 or 15 minutes trying to find that answer. So what we're going to do is, in the morning, we're going to have this meeting. We're going to find out where all the cars are at and everything. And you're going to call these customers, because now it's only going to take you 2 or 3 minutes to call each customer, because you got 2 or 3 guys working phones, on the admin, and give them an update every day. And that way our phones ain't ringing off the hook all day long. You can be more productive, just started really paying attention to the throughput of the shop and what everybody was doing with their time. Because I'll tell you exactly what happened. After the medical thing, we started traveling, within a couple of years. By the time we were in our late 30s, 38. I think Shelly was 37. I was 39. We were already grandparents. Our kids had already been gone, right? So we were traveling a lot and just living life. I started feeling guilty about the people in my company, their quality of life. So that's when I really started taking a turn on, we used to do individual commission. So to explain that, your card come in, it's got 10 hours of the body work, 8 hours of the paint work. So you give it to the body man, he tears it down, he checks in his parts, he writes down everything that got missed on the estimate, a supplement. And then it goes into the paint shop and it gets painted and it goes back to him and he puts it together and you deliver it. Well, he might have 6 to 7 cars that he's managing like that. So he tears this one down, ain't got parts. He tears this one down, ain't got parts. Parts show up for this one. And he's not actually working on the cars all day long. He's managing. So we came up with a system where bodymen no longer took the cars apart. They came in, got taken apart, supplements written, extra parts ordered. And then when that was ready to go, it would then go into the body stall, get repaired, go through paint, reassembly, and out. And we were able to cut the time down that a car was in the shop by half. Wow. Yeah. By half, because they weren't steady. Sometimes people would drop a car off a shop. Well, you didn't tear it down for 2-3 days because you didn't have a body man available because he was behind on other stuff. Well, then you tear it down, you find all this interstructure stuff that you need to order. Well, that's 7 days out. And I mean, it just keeps snowballing, right? By taking everybody off individual commission and creating a team and getting everybody work together, we could do 4 towns. And that's what I use to incentivize my guys to work together. Look, if you can do this, you can work together. I honestly believe we'll all make more money because we'll be more efficient. You body guys, you won't have to check in parts. You won't have to write supplements. You just do your work. And it did. It worked out. They were way more efficient, made way more money. We would have half staff on Monday and half staff on Friday. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when the bulk of everything is happening, everybody's there working 10 hours a day. I mean, it was huge for us. So that was really the point where I went, wow, this is pretty exciting to own a body shop.
But when the process that you had previous, though, was that like a legacy? This is the way people had always done it.
Yeah, it was tribal learning. So handed down. I mean, we've been fixing cars like that since the 50s.
Wow.
The way that we were doing it in the 90s and early 2000s.
So when you started looking
and it's still to this day, shops operate in this town exactly that way.
So what you did is when you stepped back and you were like looking at your machine, you realized that you could have so much more efficiency if you changed the things around in the workflows. And that unlocked another level for your business and your team.
Because you'd ask the buyer, what are you doing? Well, I got to go find these clips. What are you doing? All right, I got to go look for this part. What are you doing? I got to go get a copy of the estimate from the estimator. I don't know. All day long, they're leaving their stall. They're not working on cars. Or, same thing with the paint shop. What are you doing? Well, I didn't get the paint code for this thing. Well, what are you doing? Well, I don't know if I have all the parts. Well, what are you doing? Well, I mean, it was like, of course, now I'm just sitting at a table up there and watching all this take place. And it's like, here we are a mess. Just an absolute mess. So we started traveling and we didn't come up with all of this on our own by a long shot. But we traveled through the 20 group, traveled to a lot of shops, pick up a little piece here that they were doing, maybe a piece. I go to California one time, go to a shop. And for all of my life, I was told that we have to edge parts before we put them on the car. Okay, which means like you're replacing a door and a fender. Okay, well, the insides of those parts have to be. When you lift the hood, that fender edge has to have paint on it. When you open the door, the inside of the door has paint. So we would always paint all those edges, put the panels on the cars, adjust them, get them right, and then go to the paint shop and paint that door and fender. So that would actually run through the paint shop twice. Okay. So every Monday morning, Tuesday morning, it was edge parts morning. Painter would be edging all the parts. So you didn't really get any paint work done. You just got these parts edged that you need. And the reason for that was at that time, you look at the 80s, 90s, and 70s, parts didn't fit on cars very well. Mm-hmm. And they had to be shimmed and adjusted and tweaked and all this kind of stuff to make them fit. Well, if the panels were painted, you would scratch them doing that. So it just made sense to edge them, put them on the car. Well, today's cars aren't that way. They're precision. There are no shims. There are no real, there's millimeters of adjustment, not a 1/4 inch of adjustment like it used to be in the old days. So I go over to this shop in California and they're painting the parts off the car. Painting the whole fender, painting the whole door, painting the whole bumper, painting everything off the car, and then putting the car together. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Come home. Okay, guys, no more edging parts. The efficiency of the paint shop went through the roof when we did that, when they didn't have to edge parts anymore. So it was just little things like that, going out and see what, there was some stuff we figured out on our own, but, a lot of it, we just got a piece here and a piece there. And it was all because of the performance groups that we still belong to today. That kind of got us ahead of the curve as far as the efficiency.
Did you say that you led your team? Like, was there resistance to the change?
Huge.
How did you navigate that kind of change?
The first thing I want your listeners to know is team ain't for everybody. It's just not. There are people out there and that's okay, but they don't want to be a part of a team. They're individuals and they want to do their individual work. And that was kind of a big problem with our industry because our industry is full of individuals. They get paid for their individual work. So, believe it or not, the younger guys were all for it. Some of my really older guys that couldn't move as fast, their dexterity, it's a rough way to make a living. They were for it because, I don't have to get my hands in there to take the car apart. I can just do the metal work that I'm good at. But yeah, there was a lot of guys that we worked with that wanted to be on the team so bad, but just, couldn't adjust. That kid down there, he's not working near as hard as I do. Yes. Well, you need to get on. They need to be working as hard as me. Okay. But let's look at the situation here. They're making $18 an hour and you're making $60 an hour. So we can't expect them
Yep.
to be your equal because we'd have to pay them that much, I mean, it was really a challenge. I would say the last 10 years has been pretty good. We've lost a few people that had the opportunity to go to commission shops and work commission. And if you're young and talented, yes, you can definitely make more money doing that, but you're going to put the time in to do it. You're not going to do the 40 hours like you did at Beal's Auto Body. It's going to take you 50 hours because you're going to have to work all this extra time on your own. So, like I say, it's the guys, the crew that I have there now, they just enjoy it. The camaraderie, I mean, we have people come visit our shop just to see our culture because they can't believe that everybody in our shop gets along. For years, the body shop personnel, the body technicians, were always at odds with the painting technicians. Okay. Well, he's costing me money. And now he wants me to rework this because he says it isn't smooth enough. And this body guy sends me rough stuff. And the only thing that they could ever agree on is the admin sucked. That they needed to write more, we need more money on these sheets, right? So it was, it was quite a process to get through that and to get the right people. We also hired companies that did team building, cultural things, brought them in. I've sent people to Texas for culture training and just to learn more about that kind of stuff. And it's constant. It never stops. You're always working on that culture in the business all the time.
From my understanding, you have a lot of long tenured employees working for you.
Yes.
These guys have been with you multiple years.
Oh, I guess.
You don't have a very
like 35 years.
Yeah, you don't have a very high turnaround. It doesn't sound like. But what was it that created such loyalty in the team just to be with you for this long?
I think what it was is anytime I had a job, I didn't like being talked down to, and I always thought to myself, you know what? If I ever get the opportunity to be a boss, I'm going to treat people the way that I wanted to be treated. And I still stand by that today. I do not think of the people that work with us as employees. I think of them as stakeholders in my company. When we first hire you, when we first interview you, we want to know what your personal goals are. We tell you what the goals of the shop are, because unless we work together, you can't achieve your personal goals and we can't achieve our goals. So we need to just, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What kind of money do you want to be making in 5 years? What do you want to be making in 10 years? We force all that out. In the beginning, we've hired young people that my goal is to own a home. So we put a plan together for them to save. We have just a ton of homeowners in our company. And what's so strange now is I don't have to say anything. I mean, I don't do any of that anymore. All the guys in my shop do. I mean, we got a young man working for us that's 18 years old that just bought his first home.
Wow.
Prescott Valley. We've got a young man that works for us. He's been with us for probably 5-6 years. He was working the fields in Yuma when we hired him. And I'm looking at his resume and I'm going, you work a lot of places. Can you explain this to me? Well, I pick crops. So you only, you have to move around to do that. He now owns a home out and 2 kids. It's just, to me, that success is probably way more gratifying than the money.
So would you say that it's your ability to craft initial expectations, matching it with your vision for what Beal's Auto Body needs, matching it with what their personal vision?
Yeah, it's not my vision. It's our vision. It's Brian's vision. It's Clint's vision. It's Peter's vision. It's, Jim's vision. It's everybody who works there has got to have that same vision to make it work. I can't do it on my own. It's got to be a collective. Sam and Felipe, all of them. It's getting everybody to work together and create that vision together and work together to make that happen. For years, I had people come tour my shop because they wanted to do the team thing because they could see the cycle time numbers that we were turning, the keys, from the time you take the keys from the customer, the time you hand them back. And we were half of everybody else, okay? Because you can see that data on the rental car. When you get the reports from rental car companies, you can see what the national average is. You can see what the average is in your town. You can see what your average is. So we were getting a lot of attention for that. And I started working with other shops on putting their team systems together and stuff. And I quit doing it because I figured out that we traveled thousands of miles to come up with everything that we had put together to make our shop run that way. So now you can come to my shop and I can walk you through our production system. And within 45 minutes, you'll have everything that we took us 10 years to figure out. Okay. It's really simple what we do. There's nothing complex about it at all. What is complex is the leadership to create the culture. And I figured out after working in all these shops that if you have the leadership to create the culture and to turn your shop around, you don't need me. If you need me, it's probably not going to succeed because I can't be there with those skills every week, keeping it going. The other thing I would tell people before they went down that road is, look, if you don't have the ability to fire, to let go anybody that's going to be disruptive and doesn't want to do this program, don't attempt it. Don't even think about going here because it'll just blow your shop if you try and do that. It's been really, really fortunate. Brian and Sam are just really strong leaders. And they've been with me for, 25, probably going on 30 years, It's just been a real blessing. And yeah, we went through some people. I tell you, it's all been cake. We struggled a lot when we went through this team thing. There were several times where the guy goes, "Hey, Tim, we're done with this. This isn't working. There's too much animosity, blah, 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 blah." And I'd go, "Okay, but if we're going to go back to individual, we got to go back to 5 days a week." Well, wait a minute, because they really enjoyed those 3-day weekends. And that was my hook, my bait to get them, to really work on this thing was having that quality time because the smart guys would pick Friday. They'll be off on Friday, not Monday. And the reason I say they're the smart guys is because twice a year during Memorial Day and Labor Day, they get 4-day weekends instead of 3, But it's worked out really well.
So you found a way of having everybody have a shared vision to be able to move forward in a direction that is beneficial for the whole as a company. And you also found a way to motivate each of your people in a way that was maybe a little bit unique to them, but also one that was the betterment of the collective.
Well, I think what helped us out the most is it didn't matter what position you were in at the shop. I didn't care if you were washing cars. I didn't care if you were taking cars apart, if you were putting cars. I didn't care what position you were in. What can we do to make your job better?
Yeah.
What can I do? What would help you be more efficient in your department? Well, if the guys would do this and this and this before I got the car, boy, that'd be a lot better. Okay, let's implement that. I didn't build the system. My team built the system by their input on what they needed to make their job better. And that's that whole working on your business instead of working in your business thing is to take these smart, intelligent, hardworking human beings and take their input to make your company better. There's just a lot of people can't do that. It's their way or the highway. That can be a formula for financial success. But boy, it's not very good for life.
No, I love that. I think that's super solid advice because a lot of people struggle with leadership. I think I see a lot of people struggle with understanding the difference between a leader and a manager.
Right.
And they're, just because you're a manager doesn't make you a leader.
The worst thing you can do is give somebody a title. I mean, that's, oh my goodness. Yeah. But it's making that investment. Like I said, we would hire this guy several times that came in and worked with my guys on leadership. And that's just as much of an investment as it is for training on how to repair the car or training on how to use this piece of equipment or training. That is a big piece that a lot of companies don't invest in. And I think it's maybe because they don't really know how effective that can be. I know a lot of big companies spend a lot of money on culture and leadership training and stuff. And there are a lot of people out there that are just natural at it, but there's a lot of people that need help to get there.
It's a skill.
It's a skill that you have to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for somebody that has been a manager for a long time, maybe having them coming into a leadership position maybe feel a little out of place. It's like, that's something that we see pretty often is like, it's how do you make that mental jump? Because it's a mind shift.
From player to coach.
Exactly.
That's the shift from player to coach.
Yeah.
Now once you become into management, in my opinion, you're now a coach. And your job is to make the people underneath you perform to the best of their ability. And that's what coaches do, right? They take these players and they build a team out of them. They get them to work together and they figure out the best place for everybody to be and what position they should play and what plays are going to work. And I don't think management in a company is any different than that.
No,
I really don't. I just think you have to be a good coach And if you're extremely fortunate, like I have been, and you get a lot of young people through your company, you can also help them with life coach. What's important? 'Cause my young guys ask me all the time, how'd you get so successful? How do you make all this money? I said, well, you didn't get to see all my failures. I've had more successes than failures, but by golly, I have had a ton of failures, and it's learning from those failures, but it's how you manage your money. And, if you notice the guys up in that break room, they're not going to Burger King every day and buying their lunch. They're eating leftovers. So that's saving them. It's about learning the difference between need and want. And once you can figure that out, then you can start being successful. But if you're always concerned about what you want and not what you need, then you're going to be
That is also some amazing pieces of wisdom.
I would tell my young guys, look, what ruins you guys is easy credit. I said, when I was your age, my wife had 2 babies that were C-section. We didn't have any insurance. I was turned into collection agencies, and the interest rate was 13% at that time. And I got my first credit card with a $500 balance on it because I gave the bank $500 in security to have the car. Okay. Today, they just wish credit on everybody.
Wow.
So I said, here's the deal. You see that TV set that you want, and let's just say it's $1,000. Well, what you're concerned with is how much is it a month? Is it $25, $35? What is it a month? You don't look at how much interest you're going to pay. You don't look at what the final bill is going to be when you finally pay it off. You just look at that monthly payment. But I promise you, if you save up the money, the $1,000 to buy that TV, you'll probably buy a $400 or $500 TV because, boy, it took a long time to save up that money, and you don't want to spend it all, on something like that. So it's just learning that discipline, that financial discipline. I mean, what's silly is I live in $1 million home, okay? But I bought it 38 years ago for $74,000. That Chevelle out there is pretty valuable. But I bought that car 35 years ago for $800. It's what you do when you're young that accumulates to when you get older. I'm not a get rich guy overnight. I get there's people out there that can do that, but I sure can never figure it out.
No, I think people would do a lot better if we stopped trying to get rich quick and started to get rich long.
Yeah. Put a financial plan together.
Yeah. Planning, strategy, how are you going to do it? Stick to the plan long enough to let it succeed.
We get asked all the time, secret to this long marriage you've had. And it's like, she was as country as could be. I was rock and roll. I had the mullet, Corvette convertible, she had sheep, pickup truck, that just opposite ends of the spectrum. We always had a lot of respect for each other. I was raised, even though I did spend time with my dad and learn my trade, but I was basically raised by a single mother. And I didn't know that females had limitations, because I had 4 sisters and a mom, and they mowed the yard and fixed the car. And then every once in a while I go live with my dad for a little while, work the shop with him, and then live with I think the last time I lived with my mom, I was 12. I didn't grow up with that between men and women. I didn't see that growing up when I was younger. I just always, Shelley, like when she first got out of nursing school and she went to work at the VA. She got her job and Yelp wouldn't hire her because she was a new grad. And she comes home just in tears, just didn't like the VA at all because she was dealing with basically drug addicts from Vietnam. And she wasn't going to be able to make them better. It was just, a brutal situation for a very young nurse to be in. So she got the opportunity to go to work in Phoenix, and she'd work down there 3 days a week. She would leave the house at noon or in the afternoon on Sunday, and she'd work Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, and she'd be home Wednesday morning. And it was Del Webb when it was first built. So they had floors in the hospital that they had no patients on that they weren't using. So they invite the nurses, you can stay here while you're working your shifts, because there was nothing out there at that time in Sun City. I had a lot of people really question my decision to let my wife take a job in Phoenix. And it's like, let her? I mean, that's what she wanted to do. I mean, that she got this opportunity. Who am I to go, you're not doing that. And it's a good thing she did, because she worked there 3 years, came home, and then during that 3-year time, they built that new addition. Yeah. So she goes over to their apply. They put in all this new equipment. Okay. It's a brand new addition on the hospital. Well, she knew it all. She'd been working at a new hospital for 3 years. So she knew all the machines and how she wasn't there 6 months. They made her nursing supervisor because she knew how all this worked. So without that experience, she wouldn't have climbed to that things.
So you guys had a financial plan. You guys had at least even in the beginning that you had a roadmap that you guys were sticking to, and you stuck with it for
Oh yeah,
40 years. Now because you stuck with it so long, now you guys are able to really look back and enjoy all the fruits of your labor.
100%.
So I think a lot of people need to take a page out of that book, and I think our country would be a lot better off if more people would invest with a 40-year time horizon. I think that would go a long way.
Yeah, it really would. It really would. But it's just different today. There are a lot of people that didn't do that back then either. She grew up extremely poor. I grew up extremely poor, and we didn't want to be poor. I mean, I remember standing in line, a kid with free lunch because my mom was on welfare, and you had a different colored ticket than everybody else, and you couldn't give a buddy a punch if he forgot his ticket. I did not like that.
Yeah.
I did not like that feeling. We lived outside of Davenport, farm district, and regardless of what you hear about farmers, they do very well. Okay. And my mom was a hostess at the truck stop. We lived in a little trailer park there. So we got to go to school with all the rich farm kids. It was different.
So you're an overnight success, Tim. Just took 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Just took 40 years.
Overnight success.
I would say probably 25 years to become successful.
There you go.
20 to 25 years. And I've just been coasting ever since.
Awesome. Let's transition a little bit now and talk about that transition at that 25-year mark. You mentioned before it was a health scare that really forced you to reevaluate your priorities and reevaluate how you looked at your business. How long did it take you to start taking action in that new direction? And what were some of those first steps that you took to start maybe working on your business instead of in it?
Definitely joining that performance group, taking myself out of the day-to-day, dealing with customers, answering phones, doing all that kind of stuff, watching how things were moving, really paying attention to the P&Ls, really paying attention to all, because there's all kinds of different lines that you try to make profit on when you fix a car. You try and make money on your parts, and you try and make money on your labor, and you try and make money on your materials, and you try and make money on your paint, and you try to make money on your sublet, and all these things that all these costs that you have to get above those costs to be profitable. Really, really paying attention to that and knowing when an insurance company says we're only going to pay you X, and you can go, no, you know what? I can't do it for that, because how much money you're going to lose to fix that car. Look, I ran my business out of my wallet for years. And what that means is if I had money in my wallet, I was doing good, right? I mean, if my wallet was empty, I'm sucking. P&Ls didn't make sense to me because the way they were put together, wasn't really interested in learning. It was just something my accountant did. And I would look at the P&Ls and I wouldn't understand whatever, just keep going. That was the arrogance of being uneducated. But when I really got my education is when I joined my first performance group. And at the time, I'm probably in my 40s, right? And I'm sitting next to this kid that's like 32 years old. Okay. He's never fixed a frickin' car in his life. Doesn't know anything about fixing cars, but he owns a body shop in Alaska, and he's making double the amount of money that I'm making. Yeah. Because he's got a business degree and he understands business. He doesn't know how to fix a car, but he understands business. So it's like Ryan Crawford's name, still a really good friend of mine. And it's like, okay, Ryan, you're going to have to show me how you do this. How do you get this profit here? And how do you get this profit there? And that was really the power of the group. Everybody was strong at something, whether it be marketing or efficiency or, whatever, dealing with company, whatever it was. There was always somebody in there you could learn from, if you were open to that. And I think the biggest thing, for me was 2008, the financial crisis. So in 2007, you know what I did? Because we're booming. We're going big. That big shop up on top. Yeah, I borrowed $1 million and built that thing in 2007. Into it August of 2008. The economy dumped in September and October. I mean, just crashed. So that was probably the number 2 awakening for me, where I went, okay, I have got to figure out the business side of this thing, because what I'm doing isn't good enough. So that was probably another big step for me, and that's when I joined the 20 group. And started learning about all this stuff and really turned the business into what it was. But the smartest thing I did was, and most people out there that own businesses will not agree with this statement, but I got my admin staff involved in the P&Ls. I took my admin staff, Brian, took him to all those meetings so he could learn. Instead of me just coming back and puking this stuff out, I had somebody to help me puke it out with me. As an owner, you're not always trusted, but if there's another individual in your company that is trust, you know what I mean? So we just built this great plan together. And then at that time, that's when, I told you I just was watching the efficiencies in the shop and what was going on there. And Brian was taking care of the admin situation down below. So much so that I really wasn't needed down there anymore, Thought I was needed, but yeah, I really wasn't.
Some of those early steps that you took to start working on your business instead of in it was you saw outside people and what their performance was, and then you asked for help to get sharper on numbers. Knowing your numbers is what was
asking for help.
Asking for
not
help.
Thinking you know it all yourself. Yeah, that's freaking huge, especially for a business owner.
As you started to craft an exit, you mentioned your friend workshop up there in Alaska, but
yeah,
what were there any other kind of like mentors or friends or family that you kind of consulted with as you were building the machine?
No, basically I'd had mentors when I was young, and all three of them died miserably. They had lots of money and they were just miserable people. And I loved them all. But I always told myself, if I become successful, I'm not going to die in my office of a heart attack at my business. I'm going to step away from it. Which is a hard thought to have. Because Shelly and I got older. We had finally gotten to the point where she was 50. She could retire from nursing. Okay. Because the pile was big enough. We didn't need her income anymore, and started doing a lot of traveling. I had been prepping Brian, for 10 years. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Taking into those classes. Plus, the other thing too is what you have to understand is when you take in a partner, you're not taking in one. If they're married, you're taking in two people. Okay. If I'm partners with you guys, I'm as much of a partner with you as I am with you. Okay. And I had a really good relationship with Melissa. She did a lot of work for us in marketing. She was really an asset to the company, as was Brian. They were both assets to the company. Now, what I had experienced over the years was managers would be there at these meetings, and I'm in line to buy the shop from Joe, and then all of a sudden there's consolidation in our industry, and consolidators pay a lot of money for your business. Okay, next thing you know, that shop's gone, sold to a consolidator. And all these people, and we probably knew 3 or 4 of them that were in line to buy, that were working really hard and were supposed to be, next in line, went to work one day and met the new owners. So I was prepping Brian the whole time. And what happens in our industry is it's all about relationships. It's about the relationships with your dealerships, with all the people that send you work, whether it's your customers, dealerships, insurance companies. It's all about relationships. Ended up, Brian had all those relationships, not me, because I backed out, right? So, I just told him I got some paperwork drawn up, and my attorney thought I had lost my mind, but I had some paperwork drawn up, and I said, Brian, I want you to look at this paperwork. And what is it? I said, I'm giving you 10% of Beal's auto body, because you've grown the sales, you're dedicated, and you act like this place is yours. And if you got an offer to go somewhere else, I think half my business would be gone, because of your relationships with everybody. Well, Tim, I would never do that to you. Well, I know that, but I don't think it's fair. We've seen all these guys in the group. We've seen this together where these guys are all promised, and then it doesn't happen, and they get lied to. And I want to give you this 10%, number one, because you've earned it. And number two, if I was to pull a stunt like that, you still get a piece of the pie, So I gave him that 10%. And then about 2-3 years later, I worked out a deal where he could buy 39%. And that's the deal he's under now. Now he owns 49% of the company. Okay. It doesn't pay off for, I don't know, maybe another 5 or 6 years. And then in that time, him and I'll sit down and decide what to do. If he's going to buy out the rest of me, or we're going to set, whatever we want to do at that time. But it was a 10-year process, getting him to the point where, he could take the company over. Most people want to sell and get the cash. That way, if it fails, they're not responsible. Shelly and I had put so much of our lives into that and our stakeholders there. I've seen what happens when the consolidation buys the shop. Okay. Within a year, nobody that was there is still there. Everybody drifts and goes. They don't like this policy and they find jobs at other shops and stuff. And we just couldn't bear the thought of doing that to all the people that we've worked with there forever. We just didn't feel that was fair. Economically, I think it will come out better financially by doing this long-term thing with Brian and Melissa, but it's extremely rare to find people that you can do that with your company. I've had 100 people tell me, you're so lucky you've got somebody like Brian. And I'm like, yes, I know I'm so lucky. I agree.
Brian, how did you identify him so early as your successor? How did you when did you decide, yes, this is a guy that I'm going to be able to pour leadership knowledge into and be able to push him into this direction, lead him into this direction to take over?
Because he took over.
So he showed.
So Brian was a body technician for me for about 10 years that I had trained myself on how to do. And he was what I call my heavy technician. He did all my big hits because he was such a perfectionist. It was good to have him work on cars that have motors come out, cut off at the cowl, but he wasn't the fastest guy. Okay. But one thing he had going for him, every time I had an adjuster come into the shop wanting to inspect a car that was being worked on, and that car was Brian's, they just loved his personality. They just loved working with him. So I thought one day, well, if I bring him into the office and he's as efficient with doing office work, and personality is very big, okay, in dealing with people. And if he's successful at that, I can probably make way more money off of him than I can as him being a technician, which was true. So I had a manager at the time. And after about 2 years, I sat down with the manager. I said, hey, I want to talk to you about Brian. He goes, yeah, what's up? I said, well, I need to pay him more money than I'm paying you. And I just want to know how you feel about that. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, he's doing everything. The 2 years he's doing everything. He has taken over the entire everything. And this manager looked at me and goes, yeah, you better pay him. You don't want to lose it. So it wasn't that I picked him more than he proved himself out. He just, like I said, he basically took it over to the point where a couple of times, hey, Tim, we got to have a meeting with you. Yeah, what's up? Come back from a trip. Yeah, this is going to be hard for you, but we don't want you answering the phone. And I'm like, this is my company, right? Yeah. But the problem is you come in here and you answer the phone and you tell people that you know or people that you don't know, yeah, just go ahead and bring it over and drop it off and we'll do this and we'll do that. And then you leave. And then those people show up and we don't have a clue who they are, what you told them. So we'd really appreciate it if you'd quit doing that. I come back from a trip one time and it's like, hey, Brian, can I talk to you? He goes, yeah, what's up? I said, I went into my office and there's table and chairs in there. My desk and computer and everything is gone. He's like, well, yeah, you're never here. You never use it. And we needed a break room, Well, whose computer I'm going to use? Well, anybody's. We'll go up the shop, whatever. You use somebody else's computer. You're not here or not. Oh, okay. So it was kind of a soft takeover. My first impression was with him is I need to lock him into this company somehow so he doesn't steal my business. And then my second thing was, I just need to make him a partner, and because he's earned it. I mean, he grew the sales probably $1.5 million a year when he was in charge. It was just the right thing to do. It was the right thing for me to do. It was the right thing for him to do. The guys had a lot of respect. His leadership skills were top notch. He doesn't get near as emotional about it like I do. He's very solid in his reasoning. So it was pretty simple. It wasn't a gotcha moment. The bonus was Melissa coming with him because she's really, well, you guys know her, the marketing that she does and her personality. And she's just a bonus to have there, So it was pretty simple. It really was.
What would you tell somebody that's maybe doesn't have a Brian in their business right now? How would you go about trying to find him? Like, what would you think would be a way of going to try to find another Brian if he didn't already work for you?
Yeah, I think, that's very interesting. The only thing I can say on that is I know of a shop owner that was in Montana, and he specifically put out an ad to find that person. I want to bring somebody in, train with the objective of selling them the business. Okay. And he interviewed a ton of people, and he got this young man in there that had a military background. I don't know what their arrangement was when they sold. I don't know if he, got a bank loan, bought him out, or a small business loan. I mean, I don't know, but I know that guy actually looked for somebody that he could turn that shop over to. I think if you advertise it that way, you'd probably find some pretty sharp people that are looking to really, get ahead in life and are willing to put the time in. And that's the whole thing. Are they going to put the time in, or are they just going to be 40 hours a week and what's in this for me? Because there are a lot of people like that. I know family stuff. I know a lot of people that work with family, and a lot of people that have been successful, a lot of people that haven't, but that can be a tough road too.
Absolutely. Now, you have adult children.
Yes.
And
they're the perfect ages right now. 41 and 43.
Brian is not family. You made a decision to bring an outside person into the business. How was that received with your adult children?
We're both fine with it.
They're totally fine. They didn't really have any interest in the business.
My daughter's a nurse practitioner, has her own business out in if my daughter would have been interested in the body shop, we probably have 3 stores. I mean, she's just got 6 degrees. I mean, she's just nonstop, kind of like I used to be. Our son is a technician, and he likes doing the work, but there's a lot of responsibility that comes with ownership. And that's just not him.
And totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Like, you had that conversation.
Oh, yeah. I had that conversation with him when he was 20.
Oh, wow.
So I had that conversation with him very early. Not everybody's built for it. I mean, it's hard. It's a lot of hours, and, you put up with a lot of bull when you're in charge of everything, and you're the last person that gets to be made happy. You got to make the employees happy. You got to make your vendors happy. You got to make your customers happy. You got to make all these people happy. And I got news for you. Nobody gives a shit if you're happy. So it's tough.
But this is something I think a lot of people are struggling with too, is they have adult children and they say, no, I don't want the business. And then the next question is, well, now what? Like, what am I left with? And so what you found is succession through leadership development. And you made sure that the legacy of your business could continue because you invested so much into your people, and you had somebody that was qualified and capable to take it over from you. And you made sure of that over a decade of mentorship. So it wasn't something that...
Oh, it wasn't an overnight deal, but I mean, it was probably 15, 16 years, 17 years, 18 years. I mean, it was a long time, working with Brian.
So I think there's encouragement there that if you have options, if you don't have an adult kid that wants to take your business.
Oh, 100%.
You still have options.
Yeah, you have options of bringing people in and mentoring people. There's a lot of people out there that want to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They just don't know how.
Yeah.
So you just need to mentor them. I mean, honestly, there might be 3 different people other than Brian at that shop that could probably handle that position. Of leadership and ownership that have been with me for a long time. It's definitely doable. 100%.
Awesome. And your transition with Brian, would you say that you've already handed him the keys, or are you still kind of like involved a little bit in strategy decisions, or like how involved are you, like, hours wise in the business?
He came over last night and we discussed some things because he just lives around the corner from me. Early on, I would call Brian, how's everything going? Good. How's everything going? Good. I take a trip to shop. Oh, hey, how's the shop going? Everything's going good. I mean, that's all I heard. Good. That's all anybody would tell me. Good. So now Brian has built underneath him. He has empowered people underneath him to run the shop, for him to take time off. And he's like, every time I calls, they tell me it's good. I said, it's because of how much they respect you, Brian. I said, you did the same thing to me, because you wanted me to enjoy my time off and not get sucked back into all the that happens with the business. So you would always say that. And now they're doing the same thing to you. You're very fortunate, that Sam tells you and Peter tells you, yeah, it's all, don't worry about it, which it probably is all good. But even if the building's burning down, they wouldn't say anything. We just changed jobbers, which supplies our paint, which is a big move when you do that. You're breaking relationships, creating new relationships. And basically our discussion on that was, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? Well, if you can get a better deal or better service, or if you think, Brian, if we can improve the business, then do it. And then last week he says, hey, I've been dealing with, I've been talking to all these different, and I know all the companies, but he says, this company here is giving us this is where, Sam and I we think this is our best option. Okay. I'll go, and that's basically kind of it. I mean, I check we go over P&Ls together. As long as we're profitable and we're not losing money, I'm good. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. He does all the hiring, does all the firing. I'll give you an example. Summer, one of my granddaughters calls me, wants a summer job. Okay. So I can teach you how to work in the detail department, polish cars, wash cars. So she comes in, she's working and she's not working for Beal's Auto Body. She's just working for grandma and grandpa. And we're paying her to be in there, right? Oh, the gal that runs that department, Serena, which I'm just in tears. She's moving to Phoenix to get married. I mean, she's such an asset to our company. It just breaks my heart she's leaving, but she's going to improve herself. So that's, I wish her the best of luck. So then the question came down now, is Zoe far enough along? So I told Brian, I said, well, can you use Zoe? Oh yeah, she's doing really good. So he hired her and put her on payroll, and she knows that if she doesn't toe the line, she'll be fired by Brian and not grandma and grandpa anymore. So that's just kind of how it works over there, So I don't really have to get involved with a whole lot of anything, which is nice. But, we're still successful too. I'm sure if this economy tanks and all of a sudden we're struggling, we'll have to get together and make some really hard decisions on what we're going to do. But as long as things keep going the way they're going, I think,
Awesome. So you and Shelly have crafted a lifestyle that allows you to have all this time freedom back, and you have achieved financial freedom for yourselves because you guys had that definition of what it is that you wanted, and now you have freedom of your time to be able to do everything, and you haven't fully sold the business either yet, right? Like there's a plan to,
Yeah.
but it's not something that your exit, call it, is not an event. Right. It's a process.
They talk about exit strategy. It is a strategy.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to do this far, this far, this far, just kind of ease out a little bit at a time, because it's, when you make your life your business, and even though I went through everything I went through, it was still very personal to me,
Yeah.
So to be able to do this easy step back and walk away is really nice, because I don't have to go over there and pick up a rent check from somebody I don't know. And there's people in there that I haven't met. It's not mine anymore. It's just a building I rent.
Yeah.
So this is much nicer for us.
But you get to enjoy back your time completely now.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people probably have it's either all or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're either all in or you're all out. And it's just, but no, there's all kinds of different methods in the middle that allow you to achieve your goal. As long as you know what it is you want and what it is you want to achieve.
First thing you got to establish is how big you want the pile. Well, how much is enough? And a lot of people cannot get there.
Yep.
Because they'll say, I'll be honest with you. When I first started my business, I'm in my 20s. I'm thinking in my head, if I ever got to the point in my life where I could make $1,000 a week and not have any bills, I'd be done. I'd never work another day in my life. Well, that number's climbed. So yeah. So it's okay that changes. But I think what's important is just to have the plan and be happy. You get one shot at this,
Absolutely.
And I get the old saying, money don't buy happiness and poverty sucks and all that kind of stuff. But, Shelly and I say it all the time. We're not any happier now than we were when we were young and she's going to school and I'm working. We were happy, broke, two crying bratty kids, but we were happy, and then that hasn't changed. The financial success has not changed fundamentally who we are. It just hasn't. We still live pretty modest. And live in the same house we bought 38 years ago. Most cars out there that you'll see, we bought 20, 30 years ago or 10 years ago. We just, enough. It's enough.
I love it. Know what you want. Know what the end is supposed to look like. It could change along the way, but have a strategy in place and then go through the motions and start executing one by one.
Yeah.
As we're kind of wrapping up the session a little bit here, what would be your advice to the struggling entrepreneur, the struggling business owner who has been in business 20 years, right? And he's still doing everything himself and he's wrestling with this identity crisis thing. What would be your advice to him? What would you tell that guy?
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help. Go to some leadership classes. Get some help. Get out of that rut. You can't, if you're stuck in that rut and you don't feel you can get out of it, ask for help. And that's hard for people to do, regardless what situation they're in. But, find a mentor, redefine your goals and figure out what is going to make you happy in life and start concentrating on putting that plan together. Business can be tough. And maybe you just come to the conclusion, well, maybe we better get out while the getting's good and figure out something else to do to make yourself internally happy, because it's not the money. We all know tons of really miserable billionaires.
Beyond asking for help, what would be a first practical step that they can take on that journey of starting to work on their business? What would you say?
Set goals.
Set goals.
Set goals. And then if you want to fundamentally change your business and change yourself, set goals and set those goals with your people so they can help you achieve those goals. Because it's very difficult to achieve any of this stuff by yourself. But, open up, let people in, ask for help and keep swinging.
Keep swinging.
Just keep swinging.
I love it. All right. Well, I think that's a great ending. Keep swinging, everybody. Big takeaways today. Have a goal in place. Start to ask for help. Get your roadmap and your strategy together and start really working on the business instead of in the business. The difference between leadership and management and really step into that leadership position, probably like you did in those early days when you led early teams. But this has been an amazing session. I'm super, super grateful that, Tim, you've given us so much of your time here and knowledge and wisdom. And we'll see you guys next time. We'll talk to you later.